Hello, and welcome to the series that I'm doing on types of grief. So, to introduce myself first, I'm Claire. I'm a grief coach, grief educator, and a speaker. I am a bereaved sibling, bereaved granddaughter, and also a bereaved mum to my beloved dog, Maggie. So I am doing this series talking about the types of grief so that then we can be able to put language to what we're experiencing and be able to maybe talk about it with a little bit more ease and a little bit more clarity. It's not a competition, so I'm not talking about the types of grief in any specific order, and this is not to compare ourselves to anyone else. Our own worst grief is our own worst grief, and it's horrible. It's just so horrible. So hopefully I'm giving you some language for you to be able to understand what might be occurring for you, or get you to be able to get to a little bit of a further understanding of what's going on. And like I said, have some language around it so it feels true to you. So I'm not baking today, but I am in the kitchen and I have a hot chocolate with me. So that's what we're doing today. And you will see my eyes cast off slightly because I've got some notes, because there were some things I specifically wanted to make sure I covered with you. Okay, so today is about anticipatory grief. So anticipatory grief is the grief that occurs before the passing and the death of someone. This can be through different types of long-term illness. The type where it can be the person is slowly fading away through dementia or other illnesses of that type, and you just start seeing pieces of them just fade away, but the whole person is still there, but there may be memory that goes, or just other pieces that is just not the person that you knew. And then you can have the one that I experienced, which was a long-term illness with my sister that had a prognosis that was always going to end with her passing. It was not curable. Her cancer journey was 6 years and 1 month, almost to the day, and her prognosis was 5 to 6 years. And so there's kind of, I look at it like we got the whole time and an extra month, but that doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it does. And it varies from where I'm at, how close I am to some of the dates that make a difference to me. And so it's always go gentle on yourself. One of the things we don't want to do is go to the funeral before the person has passed away. Staying with them, staying present with them. There are memories that can still be made and experiences had, and time with your loved ones spent really in a nurturing way. So as I said, Lisa's was 6 years and 1 month for her cancer journey. And the wonderful thing we were able to have was, over that time, so many conversations. And it was a choice of living well so she could die well and I could have her passing be as easy as it possibly can be. It's not easy, but it's making it easier on me. And it was clearing up some of those conversations of things that we'd never really talked about. And who knows whether we would have if we had both been around until we were 80 or 90 years old. But there was one that I specifically remember that I was like, okay, I want to talk to Lisa about this, because I have a feeling she has a very different experience and thoughts on what my experience was. So I was about 9, she was about 11. And I chose to have the conversation with her. I'd already kind of played through the options and knew it was something that I wanted to ask her if we could talk about. And if she didn't want to talk about it, then we wouldn't talk about it. And I may well have approached it again. And so it was over a Christmas New Year break where I was in England with her, and we were walking along the beach. We live very close to the coast in England, and we were walking along the beach. The moon was up, and it was just a beautiful night. And I raised the topic with her, and I'm like, hey, can I talk to you about this? And I was spot on with her thinking that I held resentment towards her to what had occurred and things that we had experienced. And I didn't. I totally aligned with her, and I was able to gift her that. And then it also just enabled us to kind of open up to other things that we wanted to talk about. And we think these conversations are going to take so long and there's going to be tears and it's going to be a drag out and everything else. I think our conversation was all of about 5 minutes, but it was beautiful, it was lovely, and I went into it being prepared that she wouldn't want to talk about it, because perspectives are very different, because her perspective was she's only got so much amount of time that is left for her to be physically alive. And I, all barring anything happening, I was going to outlive her. And so her focus and her goals and wishes are going to be different to mine. And they were, and that's appropriate. And it's recognizing that we align up to those things as well and don't just try and push anyone's person's agenda. But also within that, there's so many conversations we didn't have, because it kind of wipes the slate clean of like what's really, really important and what's not. And I absolutely have things that I wish I had have spoken to her about, because I would like to know things now that I will never know. But you do make those choices, and they might be 100% conscious choices and they might not be, but for me a lot of it was, there was those conversations that I wanted to make sure we had, and then there was the ones about do I really need to talk about that, and there was ones at the time I didn't. Now I wish I had, but it's that horrible thing of hindsight's 2020, and I hadn't had this lived experience to know back then that I might want some information. Also, who knows that I might have regretted having the conversation. So there's a lot of peace and ease that we need to give for ourselves for all the stuff we just don't know, because we've never experienced that specific loss at that age that we were, with everything else going on. Yet when we had all of this going on whilst the pandemic was occurring, so that changed all sorts of things. And there was a boatload of stuff that we just plain old couldn't do. I was here in the US and she was there in England, and she had to be so cautious. So we don't get to do this again, so we try and do the best we possibly can in that moment. And we do get to have different thoughts about it afterwards, because it's really, really tough. Because again, I've got this now lived experience where it's coming up on nearly 2 years from her passing, that I was like, oh, I really wish I had of. But maybe I'm better off now without the information, and I just don't know that. So like I keep saying a lot, peace and ease, and just know that we did the best we could at the time and with the decisions that we made. So that's some of that that we were able to do. And I've talked a little bit about priorities change with, like goals and focuses and things like that. And I look at things as kind of like being a bingo card, and it was a change of a bingo card of the things that were really important to us, that we want to say, okay, we did that. And a lot of it for Lisa and I was what would be seen as very small experiences, but those were the ones that we figured out were the ones that really, really mattered to us. So your priorities do shift, and you can have conscious conversations around that, being like, okay, so what really matters now? And I think it makes a huge difference on the age of the person and all of what's going on around them. There was no little children involved in this, so that changes things. But for some people, the goals could have been that, okay, over this time, I'm going to spend time making videos and writing letters if you've got children or younger people around, so that they've got them down the road, and you can make those decisions. And that's some of the gifts that come with anticipatory grief, is that this stuff is it's going to come to an end at some point. Whereas when you get the shock passings, there was no warning. And I'm going to talk about those in another episode, to differentiate the different experiences that do go on, because everything is valid, but it's all different. So there was that. You also become a lot more discerning with your time of who you want to spend it with. So for me, my trips to England were more about time with Lisa than with anyone else. And it became that she's like, well, you're always staying with me now when I went home, whereas I would stay with mum and I would stay with her and kind of be split between the two. And it was like, nope, you're being with me all the time now, because there is that difference where we knew there was only so many of these that would be happening, and you just get more discerning. So we didn't really do much with too many other people as well, because it's like, there is the point where you are like choosing to not spend time with your person who is not going to be here in some period of time. Not to say that you still need the broader part of your life and other things, but you might make a decision around that. I, for one, was not about making new friends. I was like, nope, my focus is on my sister and my family and continuing to expand those experiences as opposed to bring new different people in, because I felt I've got time for that afterwards, if that's something that I would want then. So let me see as to what we've talked about. So I've covered all of a lot of those things. The thing that also happens with anticipatory grief is that you arrive at the person passing away utterly exhausted. With Lisa, there was lots of treatments and hospital trips and things like that. I wasn't part of the hospital trips a lot along the way, because those were happening when I was here. And when she was actively in treatment and feeling like crud, she also didn't want me around, and for that to be our experience, she wanted me to be around when she was doing really, really well, because I wasn't going to move back to England, which was one of the strange questions that we got from people, was like, is Claire moving back? And both Lisa and I were very, very, almost like there was telepathy that had gone on, that we just knew that wasn't the path for both of us. Lisa would have felt that I had done it solely for her, which would have been the reason, and she didn't want to carry the weight of that. And I had things that I was doing and experiencing here that expanded my life. And if I lived in England, I would have seen her, but I probably actually saw her more when I would go there for a month at a time and spend that time in the house with her and doing all of those experiences. So it just looked different, and that's going to make a difference on your location. If you're 5 minutes down the road, you might see them every single day for a cup of tea and a biscuit or something else, or to go and walk the dog or whatever it is. So it all looks different, and it's all about what feels really good to you and feels like love and supportive. And you can feel those things in you. You can feel when it doesn't feel like it is supportive, and that you feel that there's a ton of obligation in there and it doesn't feel like love, and it's not aligning up with what both of you need. So 6 years and 1 month, and I arrived utterly exhausted. My mum was exhausted, my sister's husband was exhausted, because it had been so much, and those last few weeks were really, really intense. Now, what also came with it, that this is something that I can say because she's my sister and I'm talking about my grief, is that there was an amount of like, I could exhale now. I didn't need to be glued to my phone and on high alert all the time. She'd passed. And whilst that wasn't what I wanted, I would have loved for many, many more healthy years with Lisa, but not many more years or days with how she was, because she was in excruciating pain and miserable, and she was ready to be done. And that can be quite frequent with people that have got long-term illness journeys, is you just reach a point where you're ready to be done. It's not like us with a cold where it's like, okay, there's tomorrow or there's something else. There's not necessarily that. And that for us, our tomorrow would look like we're healthier and we're going back and out and doing all the things that we have always done. And that's not always an option for a person. Lisa was in a wheelchair towards the end, so she wasn't walking, running, biking, or doing any of those things that was part of her life. And so she was done. So I exhaled when she passed away, in the sense of it was just like, okay, no longer on high alert, and it's happened. And so it's reality. Now, for some people, they're not going to exhale for a long time, and that's okay too. Like I said, it's all different for each of us. So those were things, and I'm just looking to see if there was anything else. And the other piece is because it's constantly looming over you that you know that this is going to occur. And I was one of the virtues of me being in the US and there being a 5-hour time difference to Lisa being in England was I could be a midnight buddy. And so that was one of the reasons that it was great for me to be here, because when it was 3 in the morning for her, it was 10 at night for me. And if she wanted to talk to someone because she couldn't sleep, she was in pain, she was just needed to talk to someone, she wasn't waking anyone up because I was always awake. And so we were able to do that, which felt like it almost like Lisa had 24 hours a day, 7 days a week support available to her. So that was something that also worked with the distance in there as well. And thank goodness for technology. And as a family, we had been so used to doing video chats and things for many, many years because it was just part of life for us. So those are some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about anticipatory grief. So it's all of the grief running up to when the person passes away. Now, it could be longer than what mine was. It could be shorter than what mine was. And it's just a case of how long things are going on for and what's occurring during those times as well. Because if it's longer and people are at different places in their life, other things could be happening, from marriages and children being born, people moving houses and all sorts of things. So those are the complexities that get added into grief. That is your grief and your journey, and it will look different, but a lot of it has some of those same flavors. Exhaustion is exhaustion, sadness is sadness, external mourning of what we look to the outside world is all the same. So give me your thoughts, drop them down below. I can bring them up in another video. What I might do is, depending on the questions that come up on topics that I've already done a video on, is I do one at the end and cover any of those questions. So drop your questions and comments below and I will come back around to those. So what I'm going to do and cover in the next video is collective and public grief. And that's exactly what it says. So it could be a famous movie person has passed away. And so therefore there's all of us that they've been part of our lives in some shape or form. So I will cover that. So as I say, keep watching because I'm going to cover all different types. A lot of the times we sit in multiple categories as well. And again, it's giving you language and understanding of what's going on because you might be feeling different things on different days of the week, times of the year and all of that. So I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. You hear us all doing that and it does make a difference in the sense of you being able to get the videos kind of showing up in your feed and you to be able to get some additional information on types of grief. The liking helps me know that I am providing content that is useful to you, and as do your comments as well. And if you've got different experiences and are disagreeing with me, put those down below. I want to know because it is all different and we can talk about it. So I think that's everything. Yep, so take care of you. I'm going to keep drinking my hot chocolate and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.